Alrighty guys, welcome to the Talking News and the Chris Watts audio. We're going to be talking about that. But firstly, I wanted to share something. Check out this beautiful day here in Florida. I heard you guys up north are getting some pretty cold weather. I'm going to try to send this up towards you guys. It's going to be an amazing spring this year. I think it's going to come early. You might not think so now, but it is. So, aren't they gorgeous? Love these guys. They stick around here 24/7. I don't know about you guys, but I had a hard time listening to that audio, especially when we got to the part where he describes how, he killed his family, especially the kids. But firstly, I don't want to talk about that right now because that gets me choked up. But I'm going to start off with what we learned about Nicole Kissinger. So for those of us that are Team Nicole, those of you that are Team Nicole, hang in there. And those of us that are not for Nicole Kissinger whatsoever, believe that she took part in some way. I'm going to explain why I think that. Now, at the beginning, I did say how I felt about Nicole and what her part was in the murder. And what I felt was that she knew the entire time that Chris Watts was married. And I felt that she was just trying to control Chris Watts and create problems, with his family. But she was trying to tell the cops otherwise. She was telling them, I told him, I don't want to mess up a family and to go back to his family and all that bull crap. But we know the truth is she was mentally playing with that guy. It's kind of like Charlie Manson. He didn't actually kill the people, but he mentally controlled the people around him that did commit that murder. And a mental involvement can play a huge role in somebody that's like Chris Watts. The fact that, he is submissive. He is not a leader. He's a follower. And he admits it time and time again. And the video even shows it. And NK took advantage of Chris Watts and helped destroy his marriage. I'm not saying Chris Watts is innocent, not at all. But I'm just talking about Nikki only here. Now, Nikki, at the beginning of the relationship, Chris says, that, she was seeing other guys and while she was seeing him. And I believe that was just a mental game. I think she was messing with him at the very beginning. And he seemed to not get angry about it. He stuck around and the relationship grew. Now, I know I told you guys in the videos previously what I thought she did. And it had come out in this audio that I was completely right. There's times I'm wrong. Not very often, but I knew for sure what Nikki was. I didn't have any doubts that she would have stayed with Chris Watts in a relationship if he would have got away with murder. But she was smart enough to figure out that he wasn't going to get away with it. The heat was getting pretty hot. And she's making sure she was not being thrown in a fire. And she ran to the police immediately, claiming that she didn't know anything. She didn't have anything to do with it. And she didn't know that he was married. And all these lie after lie after lie. And a lot of you knew this, right? You did. And some of us, maybe some of us didn't realize that at the time. But I knew. And a lot of us did know. I knew that she was calling him the entire time, trying to guide him through this. And on the audio, Chris Watts says, and we know he hadn't spoken with Nikki very often, especially after the heat got high, that she told him to delete everything. And in my opinion, I think she should be in jail with Chris Watts right now. I don't think the investigators really looked into it as deep as they should have. It went too quick. They closed it really quickly. And Nicole got away with tampering with evidence, basically. I mean, here she is saying, you know, delete everything. She's even telling him what I heard. Now, I can't prove this, but I'm pretty positive this happened. You know, to sell the ring, sell the house, you know, everything she could to help him out. Instead of helping him find his family, she's telling him, you know, get rid of this, delete that. And then on interviews with the cops, we see an investigator. She says, oh, I don't want to mess up his family. You know, I told him go back to his family. I don't want to mess things up. I didn't know he was married. She's a manipulator, a liar. You know, I don't even know what he's seen in her. A lot of people didn't. But the audios end up telling us what Chris Watts seen in this woman that most of us didn't care for. And what he seen in that woman was the fact that she listened to him. She liked to do things he liked to do. You know, it was about him and not just about her, supposedly. So we did find out some confirmations for some of us and some new stuff. And some of it even knocked me for a loop. But I want to say that I don't think the police should have put her in a witness protection program at all. She should be behind bars for tampering, you know, attempting to tamper with evidence. We also see that they start talking about the Thrive and how he felt why he was taking Thrive. And that was a lot of concern for a lot of people. Did Thrive play a role in his mental state and his health? Because he wasn't sleeping. Even Nicole Kissinger mentioned that, you know, he just wasn't acting right and that he was wearing several patches and he was losing weight and just, you know, something didn't seem right about that. So we did also find out that Chris was stressing. He was stressing because Shanann had left to visit the family for about 6 weeks in North Carolina. She visited with Chris Watts' parents and her parents. While she was at Chris Watts' parents, there was an incident with ice cream and nuts, and Cece was allergic to it. I'm not going to go through that right now. I will later. But it ended up causing problems between Shanann and Chris Watts' mother. And at that point, more stress is put on to Chris Watts when Shanann says, I don't want you to speak to your parents. Which, there are Shanann, there's a Shanann team and an anti-Shanann team. I'm not on either. I'm just really sad that she's gone. She doesn't deserve it. But there's talk that she was very bossy. And, you know, she didn't listen to Chris Watts. She didn't care about how he felt and only cared about what she felt. Whether that was the case or not, we could say that was a factor in some of his stress that would be relevant if you're investigating this and trying to figure out what made him snap, which is my concern, what made him snap. So now you have his wife is gone. His wife is calling him often, telling him don't speak to your parents. He's having an affair behind his wife's back, and that girl's also mentally playing games with him. And this goes on for a while. And he has all the stress building up. Whether he brought it on himself or not, it's building. And Chris admits in the video that he's very distressed and upset about the fact that he can't speak to his parents. You know, he's very close. He loves his parents. But he also loves his wife and family. So now we know where he is mentally when we go into the part where Shanann comes back home after the 6 weeks being gone. They have a few problems. Chris is continuing to see Nicole, and then Shanann goes off for a work, I guess a meeting, and then comes back at 2 o'clock, right at 2 o'clock in the morning, and from there the nightmare begins. Now, you can tell when Chris is telling the truth and when he's lying pretty much most of the time. And I can tell you, I believe most everything he said, except for when he describes how he killed his family and why. I don't think he was being truthful. And let's go over, that reasoning. So she comes home, gets into bed, and she gives him the sign, she's feeling frisky. They have a moment together, then fall back to sleep, and he wakes up the next morning to get, to follow his regular routine, get ready for work, brush his teeth. And then suddenly he has an epiphany. He has another thought, and there's this sudden anger. I believe his rage stemmed from the fact that he thought his wife tried to manipulate him with sex. And he had set his mind that he wasn't going to fall for that he wasn't going to do this, and that he was going to stick to his guns and tell her that he wanted a separation. So I'm going to tell you what I think he did. You all heard the audio, so you know what he said he did. But what I think he did was he jumped in the bed. Very pissed. He was pissed at Shanann for trying, to manipulate something he wanted to do. And was using, sex as a way to do that. He sits on top of her. They get in an argument that he's hurting the baby, and he strangles her. But let's cover what he said. He said he walks out of the bathroom. He wants to talk to her. There's no rage at that moment. He straddles her, sits on her stomach on the bed, and they talk a while. Then Shanann says, you're not going to see the kids. And that's what set him into a rage. And he strangled Shanann to death. At that point, he wraps the body up into a sheet. And Bella comes in and says, "What are you doing with Mommy? Is Mommy okay?" We didn't get really clear answers on that, but that's the average of, what happened if you combine them together. And he says he continues to tell her, Mommy's okay, and carries her down the steps. And as he's telling us the story, he's trying to make it seem, he's trying to hide the fact that he's actually pretty cold here, and he's still raging. But he's telling us, he's panicking. Bella's there, and he's very, he's being a very consolant to Bella, but I don't think so. So he's carrying her down the steps. He loses his grip, and her feet, thump the steps as she goes down, waking up Celeste. Now he has 2 young daughters running free in a house while he's dragging their dead mother's body around. Stuffs it into the back of the truck floorboard and says basically that, he packed his truck up and left. But later on in audio, he says, he packed his lunch and everything. So somewhere in between that, he packed his lunch as if this wasn't a big issue, with his girls running free in the house, seeing him, basically dragging the dead body around the house and into the car. Then he takes the girls, puts them into the back of the truck with their mother, but they're sitting in their seats, and they are consoling each other, sitting in each other's laps. No car seat, nothing. So definitely he isn't concerned about the safety of the girls. Police keep trying to get more details from him on this, but he refused. And the police tried different strategies to get more information on, how the girls felt, what they experienced, but he just really limited. He would talk about everything else in great detail, but not this. Police say, well, what did the girls say? They said, is mommy okay? And that Bella had mentioned that something smelled. Police tried to say, well, were they talking about maybe if the body defecated? And Chris really wouldn't answer that question, but basically, after several times of them asking him, he says, no, I don't think so. This is where I'm going to have a lot of trouble, and I'll probably end up finishing the video. And that's why I said I have to do the details later on. I'm really having trouble doing this. So he pulls up, to that area at his work where there's 2 tanks with a big open field. And he says he pulls out Shanann's body in front of the girls. Imagine this. The girls are sitting there. Cece's supposed to be asleep, but Bella's not. Pulling that body out, laying it on the ground. We didn't get details as to how. We did get some details how he killed Celeste, because Celeste would be first. I'm not going to go in details because I don't think I can handle it. He smothers his own child in front of his most favorite daughter, Bella. Then pulls that body out, takes it to one of the tanks, opens the lid, and pushes the body into the tank, and then comes back to the truck where Bella is sitting and awaiting her turn. This is killing me. Can you imagine what that little girl is going through? She is smart enough. She knows that something is happening, but she knows that you're supposed to trust these people that she's loved for so long. These are the people that are in her life every day that feed her, care for her. And she's sitting in that truck watching him approach her. And she says, she's asking about her sister. She's asking about her mother. And then she asks, are you going to do this to me? Now, there's 2 versions where Chris describes this moment. The first time, they don't really push him. But the second interview, they really push him as to what she said and what he said. And he says he don't remember, but he remembers everything else just fine. So Bella says, are you going to do this to me too, Daddy? And they ask him what he said. He says, I don't know what I said. I don't know if I said yes like a monster or a cold person. But he insinuated he knew that he told that child, yes. Yes, Bella, you're next, basically. Could you imagine the horror that child was experiencing? Then he grabs onto Bella, pulls her face, smothers it, and he admits that she, was thrashing back and forth. Her head was moving back and forth. And he smothered that poor angel. He had time to calm down from that ride from the house to there, and they said, why did you do it? And he says, I don't know. I do know. He was lying here. He did not lie about most of everything else he said, but he did lie about why he did this. He lied because he knew the kids were witness. He knew the kids could tell police what happened. And he chose himself over his own children. If you disagree with me, please comment below. Tell me what you think. I am curious to know what you think. But, and then he took that poor child and stuffed her into the other tank. And police asked him, you know, did you separate them on purpose? I believe when he said no, I did not separate them on purpose. I do believe that. But everything between the part where the murder began to the point to where Bella's put in a tank and he buries Shanann, I don't believe any of that. And if you think about it, at this point, he goes home. He's got Nikki on his back. He's got everybody on his back. He wasn't expecting for people to be on his back that soon. He has Nicole telling him to delete everything. Sell the ring. You know, they're talking about he's not concerned about the lie. I'm letting you guys know I'm recording on the go again. But he had, at that time, he had no concern about his family. He might now. I think he does now. I think he realizes that he was washed up into Nicole Kissinger so much that he lost himself, who he was, and what his family meant to him. And now he's spending time in the jail thinking about it every single day. He has nothing else to think about. And he reads to him at night. He prays to him at night. And he realizes some part of him that, you know, he was a monster. He is a monster. But you can see him as he goes back and forth of how he feels about himself. At times he's, you know, himself and as if it never happened. And then small pieces of him say, I regret everything I did. But does he? Now, I've been doing so many stories, I haven't been able to keep up with the Chris Watts lately, really. Does anybody know why the investigators returned to visit him? Was it just to check how they could investigate better? And why was the audio released after they promised it wasn't going to be, you know, this was going to be private? Now, before I go, because like I said, this is very upsetting to me. I couldn't even sleep last night after watching this. Listening to this. Chris Watts' mother, I didn't realize that she was the main one pushing for Chris not to, you know, get the death penalty. And he's very lucky to have her, because they said, you know, we're very upset this happened, but we still love you because you were in our lives and in our daughter's lives for so many years. I don't know about you guys, but that's a hard thing to do. And I'm a pretty nice person. But I don't know if I could have been that nice. Anyways, if I get time, I might actually try to go check out some other videos and see what other people think. Please comment below. Share with me. I don't care if it's an hour long what you think. Or even if you send me a video, I'll post it on this site of how you feel. I want to make sure that I put a shout out to my people out there like Jill. I love you, girl. Joe, Snook. So many people that actually make me, you know, feel like I'm doing a good job. Alright guys, I've got to go recuperate from thinking about this, because I'm still not over it. If you like it, please subscribe and like. And you have any suggestions, let me know. I don't mind trying to do things, you know, you might like to see. Because right now I'm at home every day, and I was getting bored, and I was doing these stories to help out some of the, you got all these missing women out there that need to be noticed, and I enjoy helping people. So, alright guys, y'all have an awesome weekend. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you soon.